In today's podcast, we're going to meet a woman named Julia. She's a mother and a wife. And one day, she just got fed up with credit card debt. What did she do about it? She opened an eBay store. My name is Rob Berger. I'm the founder of DoughRoller.net and the host of this podcast. And in this, the 176th episode, we'll learn in detail how she did it, how she's making money, how she prices her items, how she finds things to sell on eBay. We're going to cover it all.
Welcome to the DoughRoller Podcast, where the best thing money can buy is financial freedom. We help you make more, spend less, and invest the rest. And now your host, Rob Berger.
Whether you're just starting out, buried under a mountain of debt, or well on your way to financial freedom, this is the podcast to help you take your finances to the next level. Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. Do you ever sell anything on eBay? I sold a couple items way back years ago and then hadn't sold anything on eBay. And then more recently, I've started selling a few things around the house. I've started selling my coin collection, but I don't really have a whole lot of experience with eBay. And I've always kind of wondered, am I making mistakes? Could I be making more money? And even beyond that, does an eBay store make sense? And, would that be fun to do? And how much money could I make? And how does that work? And so I'm very excited today to have on the show Julia. Julia is a wife and a mother. She's actually, her and her family are friends of ours. We've known them for a number of years. And she has run an eBay store of her own right out of her home that began years ago from just selling a few items around the house. Julia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I am so glad you've taken some time out of your day. How people make money is so interesting to me. And I know, of course, we're here to talk about your eBay success. And so that just is, I think, just a fascinating topic. So why don't we just start, if you can give people, a little bit of who you are. And then I think you got into eBay through your father-in-law and just trying to get out of debt. Just kind of give us an idea of how you got started.
Sure. Well, for us, again, we wanted to get out of debt. My father-in-law knew that we didn't want to put things on credit cards any longer, and he ended up buying up a neighbor's huge collection of collectible Christmas houses and said, hey, do you think you can sell these on eBay? And I said, well, I can give it a shot, and that's kind of how the ball got rolling.
Had you ever sold anything on eBay before then?
No, I had not. But my husband had a small account where he would sell things occasionally, but I had not.
And how long ago was this?
Oh, goodness. A couple of years ago, I guess, probably.
And so, when you're going to sell the first item on eBay, did you do any research, read any books, or did you just sort of get on eBay and do the best you can?
Well, because my husband had sold a few things on eBay, I took his lead and just did a search on eBay to see what similar items were selling for and what they had sold for, and that gave me an idea of what the value was and if it was worth even selling.
And how did that first sale turn out for you?
Oh, it was really great. I was very surprised how quickly something sold, and that I actually made money on it.
Okay, and so after you got through that first experience, what happened next? Did you decide to sell more? How did you find stuff to sell?
Well, like I said, my father-in-law had this entire collection of things he had purchased, and so I just made an inventory of everything I had and started just selling things. And then when those were sold, I thought, well, I've got stuff at home that I don't use. I could probably, sell some of my things. And when those kind of ran out, I thought, well, where do I go next? And then my father-in-law had an acquaintance who was an elderly couple who was downsizing. And he had asked them if I could come and see what they had before they had their yard sale. And so I went over there, and they had just some really cool stuff. So that was the launch, I think, of my business.
So after the initial sale of the items that your father-in-law gave you, you started selling some things in your home?
Yes.
So did your husband come home and wonder where the salt shaker was, and you'd sold it on eBay, or how did that work exactly?
No, well, I didn't sell any of his things, but I looked, for instance, through my jewelry drawer and found that there were, for instance, silver earrings that I really never wore, and so I thought, well, I could sell these, and they were name brand, and so I put them up for sale, and they sold.
Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, so once you did that, then you said you went to a pre-garage sale. And
yeah.
So that would kind of scare me a bit. You go to this place and you see this stuff, and you're how do you decide what something is worth and if how it will do on eBay?
Sure, that's a good question. I personally buy things that I find interesting. So I think that's an important thing. If it's something that doesn't appeal to you, then it's going to be hard to sell. But so if I saw something when I saw something at this couple's home, I thought, wow, like an old typewriter. It was a red metal heavy, one of those old typewriters. And so I just went onto eBay. I had an eBay app on my smartphone and looked up what people were selling this typewriter for and what it had actually sold for. And you can refine your search. And that'll give you an idea if it's worth it or not. And old typewriters sell really well, so I bought that old typewriter, I think, for $30 and sold it for $150.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you ever shy away from selling something that's really heavy because of the shipping?
I guess it depends. Yes and no. If it's, again, back then, that's when I just got started. Now with FedEx Smart Post, for instance, you can ship heavy things, but I try to stay on with things that are a little bit lighter and not like heavy machinery and things like that.
Well, we're going to come back to shipping in a minute, so I've written down FedEx Smart Post, so I can ask you what that is. But before we get to all the sort of nitty gritty on how you run your business, so you sold some items that your father-in-law had purchased for you. You sold some of your own jewelry, and then now you're at a garage sale buying stuff and selling. Where did it go from there?
Well, I guess, to be honest with you, Rob, I don't remember exactly what gave me the idea to go to Goodwill and Salvation Army, but somehow I ended up there and just started looking at things. And so I would kind of pile my cart full of stuff that I thought was interesting, and then I'd go sit in a corner and get on my eBay app and look to see if it was worth selling. If it was worth selling, I'd keep it. If it wasn't, I'd put it back.
Okay. And do you still do that today?
I still do that today because I don't want to miss out on a good deal or spend too much time looking something up and having something, disappear because somebody else grabbed it. So I generally look at all the things that I like, put them in the cart, and then I go somewhere in a corner and I go and just kind of look to see if it's worth selling or not. And I'll put it back if it's not worth it.
And do you find items to sell through other places besides Goodwill and Salvation Army, or is that primarily now how you run your business?
I think primarily it's through thrift stores in general. I probably will start going to yard sales again, but I think yard sales are kind of more hit or miss because people might be selling their kids' clothes, and I'm not interested in that. Where when I go to a thrift store, I know exactly where the things are that I would like to sell, and so I go to that particular section. So I think that cuts down a little bit on the searching and finding aspect of it.
So what kinds of things do you look for? What kind of things are you interested in selling?
Well, for me, I like vintage items. So right now, anything that's 1950s, 60s, 70s is very popular. Certain copper things, not everything, but just kind of unusual stuff. Something that I find appealing, I'll pick up and try and see if it's worth selling.
It's funny to hear you describe the 70s as vintage. I guess that means I'm vintage.
Yeah, I'm vintage too in that case. Yes.
and so that was, I take it you just settled on that because it's where your interest is. You enjoy those sorts of things.
Yeah, I like unusual things, and I think different people. Some people focus only on selling mugs, or I have an acquaintance who sells cosmetic stuff because she doesn't have a lot of room to store things. So I think it's whatever appeals to you. I think is probably important. There's a couple I run into at the thrift stores. They sell games. So. Yeah, it's probably whatever you like yourself is probably something that would do well.
Okay. Well, let's kind of fast forward to today. So I know today you have an eBay store, which I'll link to for everybody listening in the show notes. But when did you get the store? And, so I sell on eBay, not very much. I don't have a store. When did you get the store? How do you get one? What's the advantages of it?
Well, when I started realizing, man, I've got 50 items for sale, or at one point I had almost 200 items for sale. There's the advantage of having a store is that eBay charges you a flat fee every month for, let's say, for my store, I have the basic for 150, or you get 150 free listings for the basic, and then you get discounted fees for every additional item that you post above that 150. You also get other, benefits. And for me personally, I go on vacation every year for a couple of weeks. And so if I have a store, I can just click on vacation mode, and I can keep my store open, but everybody who looks at my things will know, wow, she's gone till this time. And so if I buy from her, it's not going to ship until after a particular date.
Okay.
If you don't have a store, you have to put that in your listing, or end the listing every time you close your store or you go away.
Okay. And what
it's very labor intensive.
Yeah. And that's actually, it's interesting because that's actually happened to me where I put a coin up for sale and then realized that the auction was going to end at a time when I was going to be out of town for a week.
Yeah.
And so I actually took the listing down and had to redo it. So what does a store cost you each month?
Well, I think what I pay, because I pay I'm trying to think. I think I pay $15.95 a month.
Okay.
And like I said, with that I get 150 free listings plus some other benefits.
Right. And so, like right now, how many items do you have listed?
Well, I mean, I had a whole bunch of things end. I think right now I have about 94 items listed, but sometimes it'll be up to 150 or more. And I also sometimes will wait till eBay will offer me free listings. Mm-hmm. They'll do that occasionally, so I don't use up everything I have in my 150 free listings every month.
Right. Okay, so what I'd like to do is kind of dive a little into the details so people can learn from your experience that may be interested in doing this.
Sure.
So let's start from the very beginning. You're going to list an item. Do you have a certain way? The price is always, is it an auction? Do you have a buy it now? How do you determine the price?
Yeah.
How do you do pricing?
That's one of those kind of, you just have to do it to figure it out. What I do initially is when I do my first search to see if something's really worth selling, I look to see how many things are for sale, like that particular item. If there's 1,000 things of that particular item, I don't bother because I'm competing with too many people. Let's say there's 30 things of that particular. Let's say I'm trying to sell a vase. And then I'll look to see how much that vase is currently being sold for and how much it's actually sold for. And then I look to see, okay, did it sell mostly at auction or did it sell mostly as a buy it now? And so that kind of gives me an idea. And then also another determining factor is what's the least amount I'm willing to take for this item. Because eBay will suggest you start an auction at 99 cents, which, it might sell for 99 cents. And if you really, wanted it to sell for $20, then you're out that money. So that's what I would suggest is look to see what, and again, someone might be asking $100 for an item, but it might only be worth $20. And so that person's not going to get that $100 most likely. So it's always good to see what things have sold for to give you a better idea of a realistic price.
Right. Well, I'm curious, are most of your items, do you sell most of them buy it now or most of them auction or maybe I think you can do both, right? Yeah.
I mean, I do a variety of different things. I learned from a neighbor friend that eBay has a computerized system that prioritizes your listings based on certain criteria. So what I try to do is I try to have a mixture of stuff so that my things, when somebody puts in a search, will come up before maybe someone else's. So if you have, a variety of buy it now and auction, and also maybe throw in some buy it now with free shipping, that will boost and prioritize your listings over someone who only does buy it now, for instance.
Okay. And the free shipping helps too to boost it in the rankings?
Yeah, I mean eBay, they say the percentages are I think in the high teens or low 20s as to increase in sales if you offer free shipping. And if it's a light item, it's definitely worth it. Or if it's something I know is not going to break and I don't have to package it super well, it can go into like a flat rate box. I'll offer free shipping.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I'm looking at your store now, and it looks like you have 18 items for sale in the auction format and 81 items in the buy it now. So it looks like, at least at the moment, you're sort of favoring the buy it now.
Yes. And I just had a whole bunch of auctions end that didn't sell, and I'm not desperate to sell them at auction, so I'm just going to kind of leave them for now.
Okay. And when you say leave them, you mean relist them or just?
Yeah, I won't relist them currently because, I'll wait, for instance, to see if eBay will offer me some free auctions,
Right.
and then I'll list them again. So I'm saving myself some money that way.
Did you ever buy items that just for whatever reason never sell? You've had them. And what do you?
Yeah, and it's trial and error. And like for me personally, I just have found, for instance, teapots. They just don't sell real well. I don't know why, unless it's something really unusual and very rare and sought after. So I have a box with stuff. It's not a lot, but it's some things that I will hope to either just get rid of at a yard sale at some point, or just donate back to charity probably, and just write it off on my taxes.
Okay. So it's a combination of buy it now and auction. But do you ever list an item with both buy it now and auction?
Sure.
Okay.
And again, eBay will charge a fee if you do auction with a buy it now, I believe. But it's, again, you have to weigh. If it's a $3 item, you don't want to pay the extra 25 cents for the buy it now.
Yeah.
But if it's an item that, maybe you're selling for a little bit more, it might be worth the 25 cents to. And I have had people buy it now versus, if I've had it up for auction and buy it now at the same time.
Right. All right. So one thing I've noticed about your listings is the pictures of the items are all very, very good. They seem high resolution, good lighting. And like I'm looking at some mugs that you have for sale, and you've got them stacked different ways, and you've got some pictures from the top down. You've got one picture of the bottom of the cup because I guess it's got the logo. Yeah. How do you take, just give us an idea of the camera equipment, the lighting. How do you take good pictures?
I mean, number one, just to preface, it's crucial that you have good pictures because, the people that are buying from you can't, they can't pick up the product. They're going by whatever what you're showing them. And so I started out with a digital camera, but then a number of years ago, my father-in-law gave us an iPad, and honestly, that takes amazing pictures. And I just started out with a white sheet and like those foldable poster boards, that have like the sides on them, and that's how I started. So you don't need a lot of photography equipment. I now bought myself one of those cubes, and they're not expensive either. But you can start with basic things, but good lighting and up close pictures and lots of pictures are really are the key.
What do you use for lighting?
I have a variety of different lamps. With this little cube that I bought, I got a couple of lamps that came with it, like little I don't know if they're called floodlights or what, but yeah. And I have a hanging lamp from over top, and then lights from the side. And this cube allows the glare, that minimizes the glare, which I had a problem with previously without it. But again, there's ways around that, and you don't have to have a whole bunch of photography equipment to make it work.
What's the cube that you've referred to?
It's like I believe it's made out of something like a parachute material. And if you go online, you can just look at photography equipment, and it's like a little box basically that you put the lights outside, and it filters the light, and it highlights the item without having a glare, for instance. Okay. And I think I paid $20 for the whole thing. It wasn't much.
Well, I'll track that down and leave a link to it in the article.
Okay.
So you take the picture with your iPad. Do you actually create the listing from your iPad as well?
You can. I prefer because the app doesn't have all the features on it that it does on my laptop. So what I'll generally do is I'll create the listing on the laptop, save it, and then I'll go and take my pictures and then add the pictures to my eBay app, and it's real easy to do that. So it's not a whole bunch of back and forth.
Okay. So you create sort of the draft listing on your laptop, and then when the only thing that's left is to upload some pictures, then you go to the iPad app. iPad, take the pic. By the way, I get into that level of detail because what I was doing was taking the pictures with my iPhone, right, and then using iCloud because it'll stream those photos to your laptop through iCloud. But it sometimes takes it can take 20 minutes sometimes. So I'm sitting there waiting for the photos to arrive on my laptop. Obviously, I was working hard, not smart. But okay.
Well, and that's how when I had a camera, that's what I had to do too. I would have to send the pictures or download the pictures to my computer. It just was a longer process. Yeah. And again, if you're just starting out and you're not sure you want to do this, it's not worth buying a whole bunch of stuff.
Right. And I take it, do you run all the revenue through PayPal?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the only way I do business, and I have that also in my listing. And again, I learned from what other people had. There's no copyright on anything that's on eBay as far as I know. So I just cut and paste what I liked, how people worded things, and also the whole PayPal thing. I have on there that I only take PayPal, and it makes things much easier. I don't have to worry about not getting my money by check or something. I don't take cash, none of that. So it just makes things much easier.
Right. Okay. So when you're coming up with a description for an item, do you oftentimes look at descriptions that other people have created for the same item?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very important. Again, there are people who have very brief descriptions. I personally don't like that. I mean, you don't have to be super wordy, but I do think it's good to give measurements. If it's, for instance, a mug, how tall and how wide the mug is, but also like how much liquid it holds. I'll put in 8 fluid ounces or something. Again, the more information that the person has, the better. And if it's something you're really excited about, put it in there. I mean, eBay has stressed that, trying to be super professional, like coming across like I'm this huge corporation, is not what people are looking for when they're shopping on eBay generally. They like a little bit of, that personal touch. So if I find something I'm really excited about, I put it in there.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at one of your descriptions, and one of the things I noticed, it's kind of interesting, at least things I wouldn't think of, but like, you suggest different shipping methods depending on where the person lives.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they get to decide how you're going to ship it to them?
Yes. And I do that, again, if you live on the East Coast, for instance, it's much cheaper to send things generally, I will say, by priority mail. I live in Virginia. If you're in the states surrounding Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all that, it's cheaper to send things most likely by priority mail unless it's really, really heavy. If you live on the West Coast, it'll cost you a fortune. I just had somebody buy something. She wasn't looking, and she shipped it priority mail, and it cost her $40.
Wow.
And I offered to send it cheaper, but she didn't get back to me in time. And and we don't need to get into all the details about deadlines, but I tell my customers I ship in one business day, and I didn't want to be penalized for not shipping in one business day, so I shipped it out. And so that's hard. So yeah, I do offer the different shipping options just so that people can save money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I noticed too, you say in there that you reuse and recycle packing material, which I guess is important to folks because of the environment, and that you have a clean, pet, and smoke-free environment.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting.
Well, again, I think that's important because a lot of the eBay businesses, the smaller ones, are, out of people's homes. I think it's really important that people know that it's, for instance, for us, we don't have any pets. If you have a cat or dog allergy, you don't want to get something that possibly might have cat or dog hair on it.
Yeah.
And also that we don't smoke. Nobody wants to get something that reeks of cigarette smoke. So those are the type of things that, I think people are looking for. And then it builds confidence in you as a seller. The buyer feels more comfortable buying from you.
Yeah, sure. So one thing I noticed when I started selling more recently on eBay is that you can buy your postage through eBay, print it off on your printer, and take it right over to the post office.
Yes.
Do you do that?
Always, only. I think it's silly not to. Because what eBay does is, if you print your postage, and all you need to do is just, you print it through a regular printer, and it prints up the barcode, it prints up the customer's address, it prints up the return, your address as the seller. You don't have to do anything other than tape the label to the box, and it just makes it so much easier. And then at some point, if you've reached a certain level with eBay, and I honestly can't tell you what that is, but eBay also gives shipping discounts.
Right.
So I can either pass those on to my customers, which I oftentimes do, or that's just a little bit of extra profit for the seller.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth it.
How do you manage all of this? Because you're selling a lot of items, you're shopping for them, you have to run to the post office potentially 5 days a week or more, perhaps. Yeah. How do you keep track of all this?
Well, I guess I'm pretty organized by nature, and I think, honestly, if you want to have a successful business, you need to be somewhat organized. When I bring an item home, I have a friend of mine set up an Excel spreadsheet for me, and I have it broken down by month. So right now, this is May. I'll go into my May spreadsheet, and let's say it's, the first item in May that I'm going to be putting down. So I put the description in and then I put in what I paid for it, and then I have it's assigned a number, May, 5/1, May, it's the month of May, first item. And then I will, once I've taken the pictures, I label that 5/1, and then I have bins in my basement, and those are all marked with numbers, and I'll wrap it gently, put it in that bin, and then I'll go back into the listing and add to the very bottom of the listing 5/1- and then the bin number. That way I know in my Excel spreadsheet, I can just pull it up. It was May. It was the first item I listed, and I know what I paid for it, and when it sells, I can put in what I sold it for, what I paid in shipping. And also, again, the bin number is really important. I'm not going through, 18 bins looking for this item. And again, it's been trial and error when I couldn't find something, and I actually had to tell a customer I don't have it. And then a month later, I found it, and I was really embarrassed.
Right.
So,
that would be me. I'm worried. So I'm selling Morgan Silver dollars, and I'm worried that I'm going to ship the wrong item to the wrong person when I sell more than one. Have you ever done that?
I have not. I'm very grateful. I have not done that. And I think by numbering things, again, and I just use like painter's tape and a Sharpie. I just, write down the number that I assign it and stick it on that item, and then that way I don't have to worry. It's on there when I'm getting ready to ship it. I can compare it with my listing before I ship it. So I'm grateful. That has not happened to me before. But I have forgotten to ship things before. Like if there's several components to something, and then I had to go and ship it again, the second item that I forgot to add, and that came out of my profit, of course.
What are some of the things you think you've learned? Like you look back and you think, boy, you didn't do things the way you do now. Are there sort of the things that you can only learn from doing this for a while that kind of stand out in your mind?
Well, I think number one is important to ask yourself, what's your time worth? What are you doing this because it's a hobby and you just want to, get rid of some things in your house, or is this something you want to do as a business? And so what I've learned is I tend to be impulsive, and if I see something, there's certain things I'm just drawn to naturally that I want to buy, but I know now they don't sell. And so, for instance, Pyrex dishes, unless they're really unusual and you can find like 4, like nesting bowls that are all together, it's probably not worth buying.
I love Pyrex dishes.
I do too. And I just, I want to buy that Pyrex, but then I have to go, no, you know what? It's going to cost me, let's say, $1.99 at Goodwill, but if I can only sell it for $4.95, if you take my time and the eBay fees and, all that included, it's not worth it. Right. So I have to put things back. So I've learned not to just buy because I like something necessarily. It's got to be sellable.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's key. So how have, do you see your business growing? Like how is 2015 shaping up for you compared to previous years?
It's interesting because eBay in the past they give you kind of like a flow chart, and you can see how what you sold and how you sold. I think I've scaled back just a little bit because my husband was complaining I'm spending too much time in the basement. But I've got like 7 boxes ready to go to the post office today. Last week I only had 2 or 3. So again, since we're not dependent on this income, I'm not pressured to, sell things. But I think 2015 will probably be a great year. But again, I'm not setting sales goals for myself. I'm just doing this as things come in or as I see things, I'll sell them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not under any pressure.
I mean, do you think, based on your own personal experience, I know this is kind of, I guess, maybe a part-time income?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
What do you think the potential is for folks?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, eBay has little, advertisements on there of people who've made it big. I mean, if you want to make this your business and you find a niche that's, that will sell, then you can definitely make an income on this. I do believe so.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to be on, selling beverage glasses. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're just doing this part-time. Can you give us any kind of sense as to what kind of money you make?
Well, low 5 figures, I would say. Okay. And again, and that's because we've kept all of our receipts, and eBay will send a form to the IRS if you make over a certain amount. So I would recommend anybody, even if you're doing this as a hobby, save every single receipt so you have, stuff to fall back on for taxes.
Do you think it's important if someone wants to go into this as a store, let's say, as a business rather than just selling a few things around the house? Do you think it's important that they settle on a niche?
I don't know. I guess I haven't. I've sold unusual things. I sold a stethoscope the other day, just because it was $1.99, and I'll tell you, I sold it for $30.
Okay.
And it's not a huge profit, but so that's not something I would normally sell.
But you do focus on vintage stuff, generally.
I do focus on vintage or housewares. I do, believe it or not, resell my son's soccer cleats. I wash them real well, and they'll sell for $20. Yeah. So.
What's the most profit you've made on a single item?
I'm trying to think. I probably have made over $100 on an item before. Yeah.
Right.
I would say that's probably about the most. 120.
Right.
And I paid I paid nothing for it, basically. But again, and that's one of the things too. I had to go, okay, am I ripping people off or am I being greedy? And I thought, no, well, I'm going with what other people are selling this for and what this item has sold for, what the value of this item is.
Right.
And so, if this item has a value and I was able to get it for a good deal, what if Grandma had passed it on to me? Then I wouldn't have paid anything for it.
Right.
So, so that's kind of how I look at it now.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
How much time does this take? How much time would you say you spend a week on this?
Oh, cumulative, I couldn't tell you because it varies from week to week. I would say probably from the start of a listing to the completion of it, I would say anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. And again, it depends on, is it an item that I need to clean up? Or is it an item that I can just, take a photo of and sell?
Would you think in a typical week you spend more than, 20 hours?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I try to limit myself, but because you can really get wrapped up in this because it's fun and it's creative.
Well, it sounds like you're doing great. And like you said, it's fun. So you're selling items that like you said, these vintage items, which is your thing. Mm-hmm. That's what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any books or websites or blogs or whatever resources that you found helpful in learning more about selling on eBay?
I think eBay provides a lot of information. That's pretty much where I've gotten most of my information that I've had, or just talking to other people who sell, as I come across. But I actually have not read any books or, looked up any kind of, things like that to get more information. It's either been by eBay or just by talking to people.
Well, maybe you need to write the book.
Oh, goodness, no. I don't know. That'll even take more time than I can't
that's
tell.
True. That's true. By the way, I forgot to ask you. I wrote it down. FedEx Smart Post. What in the world is that?
Yes. Well, FedEx says it's a collaboration between the post office and FedEx Ground. It's the cheapest way you can send something if you're sending it far away. And what happens is you take it to a FedEx office. They transport it by ground, and then the local post office actually delivers it. Huh. So, and it's much cheaper than now I don't know what UPS's rates are, but because I use FedEx and the post office because that's convenient for me. I don't have a UPS store conveniently located, but they may have something similar. But it works really well. And you can ship something to California for $12 and have it be pretty big and heavy.
And is this postage also? Can you also buy it through the eBay website?
Yes.
And how do you know to select that over just the post office based just on the price?
Yeah, you can. What you can do is when you make your listing, and that's another important thing I think. Unless you are, you can put something in a flat rate box. And again, if you're trying to save your customers money, flat rate boxes may not always be the best way to go. If it's, close to where you live, a flat rate box might cost more, because the bigger ones are more expensive than you just sending it regular priority mail. But when I make my listing, I always, or not always, oftentimes will check a calculated cost, which means it's depending on where the person lives. as to what they're going to have to pay. And so I can do calculated costs for FedEx, I can do calculated costs for UPS or for the Postal Service, the U.S. Post Office. And then the customer, before they make that purchase, they can input their zip code, and it'll calculate for them based on the weight that I put in of the item, how much it's going to cost them to send it that particular way. So they can kind of play around with it and see what would be the cheapest way to ship, have something shipped to them.
I see. And so checking the calculated cost, that's something that you do when you list the item itself.
Yes, and I generally, again, do that unless it's an item that's lightweight and I can put it in a flat rate box, or it's an item that would be cheaper to send flat rate than it would be, any other way.
Well, great. Well, this has been fascinating. I've already learned several mistakes that I've been making on eBay, but that's a whole nother show. Well, that's great. Well, congratulations. It sounds like
Thank
you found a niche that makes you some money. Hopefully it's helped you get out of credit card debt.
We're getting there slowly. Hey, the snail's pace, but we're getting there.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's great. Well, Julia, thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. Thanks for calling and asking me to talk to folks. It was really a lot of fun.
Well, again, a big thank you to Julia for taking the time out of her day to share with us her experiences selling items on eBay, opening up an eBay store, and now having run it for a number of years. If you have any questions for Julia, shoot me an email, dr@DoughRoller.net. I'd be happy to forward them on to her. And if you'd like to support this podcast, it's an advertisement-free show, but you can support it. Just go to DoughRoller.net/support, and as always, much appreciated. Hey, until next time, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.